Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, 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 good morning. Come on into the room. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, Tamil. Good morning, Free. Good morning to our community on YouTube. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to our community on Facebook. Good morning, good morning. I'm seeing a lag. Okay, there we go. I was seeing a lag. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning to each of you. Good morning. Shayla and Deborah and Leah, Carlene and Bianca. Good morning. Good morning. Come on into the space. Good morning. I'm just sharing. Why don't you do that with me? Share to your communities. I know I am sharing to our Pink Road Chronicles Facebook page. Good morning. Good morning. Shay, good morning. Now I'm just coming back over. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, you all. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Come on into the space. Come on into the space. Admittedly, I want to begin. Good morning. For those of you who are here, good morning, good morning. Admittedly, I, I am, I am, I am is what I want to say. Many of you, I want to begin straight away, straight away, just with the unexpected announcement of the transition of Bishop Troy Sanders. I am very, very speechless and invite the Pink Robe Chronicles and the clearing communities, all of our village keepers, to please keep Bishop Sanders' family as well as his spiritual family, the Fellowship for Affirming Ministries, Bishop Yvette Flunder, Bishop Vanessa Brown, and all of the office of bishops, the leaders, the lay leaders, the community members of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, as well as Rehoboth Church, Rehoboth United Church of Christ, which was the church that he pastored. I count him as a co-journey, a co-laborer in doing the work. He is the pastor of someone who is family to me. They identified each other as twin spirits, twin souls, and so I've been up into the wee hours of this morning, just journeying with my family member in this totally unexpected loss. And so I just want our community to be sure that we are lifting up the families, and that we are, one thing that I've been doing, even once I read the announcement, I just started saying Troy's name, just saying his name, with the belief that the saying of his name gives him energy, gives him sort of a wind that pushes him along the journey to the ancestral realm. It is what I hold on to, that as he is journeying, our prayers, our thoughts, our saying of his name are the wind that pushes him. And I know that he will be greeted well. I know that his own ancestors, as well as our collective ancestors, will greet him well because of the work, because of the medicine that he gave to us because of his choice. A couple weeks, I'm going to say this and get off of it, but it is what I was sharing with my family member, and it is what I've just been sharing with myself. You all, some weeks ago, you'll recall when I preached and talked about Elder Baba Orland Bishop, and this will be hard for some of you to hear, but we talked about just on this metaphysical level, death being the highest form of initiation, particularly in this tradition, and that it is the ultimate form. It is, I'm choosing my words wisely here, it is something that should be looked at. That on this silent Saturday yesterday is when Bishop Troy breathed his last on this side. But I full well know, just like you can see your breath when it is cold outside and you breathe and you can see your breath, that's just how thin the veil is. And I full well know that the bishop is moving on the other side, and will be a powerful, powerful ancestor for us. And so that is what I wanted to say. I don't want to linger there out of respect for those who are hurting and sort of maybe just be doing a drive by past this and weren't expecting to hear. But I could not, dear brother, begin our Pink Robe Chronicles without saying your name. You, great sir. My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. You went back to your Facebook page, and I saw that your last post was on March 31st, and you were testifying about your journey. And you were saying that 3 years ago you made a decision. You made a decision to change your life, to get your health, to take your health by the reins, and to shift what you were doing. And certainly we were witnesses to the outer appearance of what was happening. We saw your chisel, we saw your guns and your pecs. We saw the signs and symbols that had been etched onto your body. But if you didn't know him, then you were not able to also experience the spiritual initiations, the spiritual shifts that were happening. And what I am so grateful for is that Bishop Sanders had come to the place where it was a place of alignment, a place of semblance, Ashe, a place where he was full on accepting of his African spiritual traditions, full on, and had recognized that these traditions had always been with him. And so I give thanks that for many in his community, that he was able to provide, that was the medicine that he provided. He was a bridge for those who had still been under the load of the oppressive load of not being able to make that bridge or to walk over that bridge that Bishop Troy was, that he was clear, my God, today, that he was clear. And so I am thankful. Ashe, I am thankful. I am thankful. That is just for just one minor example. And so I just wanted to begin this Sunday marking the life and giving energy and inviting you to give energy to Bishop Troy as he makes his journey on the other side. So if you have space today, find a beautiful place. If you don't have an altar, find a beautiful place and bring a nice tall glass of water. If you know, preferably not out the sink, but if that's what you have, amen and ashe. A nice tall glass of water. If you have a white candle, light a candle. And when you make your meal today, place some out, just a small little plates. That these are symbols to travel, water for the journey, candle to light the way, food for nourishment as he travels. Ashe, Ashe, Bishop, we speak your name. Yes, we speak your name. We speak your name. Ashe, Ashe. Also, let me just take a breath before I even move. Let me just Mm, mm. Yes. May Bishop Pearson meet you, brother. Mm. My. So it has been said, so shall it be. Ashe. Thank you to all of you who have given to Free for her 2025 Jabberwock, her participation in Jabberwock 2025. Jabberwock is a scholarship pageant that is sponsored, that is a component, a program of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Um, Everywhere across the world where Delta chapters are. Jabberwock is a part of our educational thrust. And this, each chapter, coordinates their own scholarship pageant. And so Free is participating in the Jabberwock 2025 that is sponsored by the Winston-Salem Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I want to thank you for all of you for your fives, your tens, your 20s. They have been adding up the last day to support Free. I also want to say that you all, I've been intentional by not giving the amounts because also not only is a pageant, it's a competition, y'all. Meaning that the person who raises the most money is crowned Miss Jabberwock. So I've not been saying, I've only been saying, is she close? How that she's getting closer to her goal because it's a competition. And so I just want to say thank you for those of you who participated in Free Day on last Saturday at our job, the Snob Shop, where 10% of that day's sales were given to Free for her scholarship competition. Thank you. It was wildly successful. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Certainly, it is not too late to give if you still want to give. I only use Cash App for these things. Y'all know I'm not a big Cash Apper, but I am on Cash App. I'm Melva L. Sampson, Melva L. Sampson. And then if you want to Zell her, I am Dr. Melva Sampson at gmail.com. Ashe. That is free. And we give thanks for her. Okay. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Those are the announcements that I have today. I want to say, as we prepare to go forth, and at this point, I hope that you've shared. I see that there are 43 people over here on Facebook, 10 on YouTube, and those are just the people I can see that are watching who've tapped in. If you are on Facebook, I invite you to share. To come on and share right now. Go ahead and click like first and then share this post, this live with your community. Ashe, thank you again for your patience as I am really feeling my way through. It is just the wave of disbelief that is so palpable that it will come so far as to my throat, and I just have to breathe. And so I thank you this morning in advance for just bearing with us and bearing with the entire community and friends. You should notice by now that I have not been in the digital pulpit of the Pink Robe Chronicles since March 30th. It was the Spirit moving, inviting me to expand after a cry out for help. I said to Great Spirit, I cannot do this. Listen, I cannot preach about the model and then live in the model. It doesn't work. I cannot preach against the model and then still perform the model. It's double-minded in all of its ways. And I said, I'm really tired. And, I'm tired. And so one of our village keepers said something in our clearing, and it just instantly, I said, oh my, we need to hear from you. And that's how it started. And so we started off, the Reverend Dr. Byron Harris started us off. My goodness, my goodness. Woo! On March 30th, followed by Reverend Carmen White Yanaka, followed by Baba and Elder Sibling Village Keeper Michael Wright. And today, friends, we are keeping up the trend. What a beautiful acknowledgement and celebration of my birthday, the season of my solar return this has been. And so I am super excited, super excited, super excited. Let me bring up my graphic because you all know that I'm producing. I am super excited today to welcome to the Pink Robe Chronicles to the front line, Ashe, because certainly Daniel is someone who has been in the background. I am excited to welcome to the Pink Robe Chronicles frontline a comrade, and you heard me correctly. I did say a comrade. One of the things Daniel and I were just talking off screen when we were getting our testing together is that one of the things. Hold on, let me get my. Wait a minute. Wait. Let me double up my screen. 1 second. There we go. One of the things that Daniel said, he said, this is bold leadership. This is a bold leadership move. This is a bold leadership move, and he is telling the truth. I thought about it. I did when I extended the invitation. It was totally a move of spirit. I knew that it was coming. Community members knew that it was coming because we talked about it in the clearing. I just didn't know when it was coming. And as I told our members of the clearing about how this has been moving, as it comes, I'm just obedient. And when I did it, I want to be honest that I was like, okay, now what does this mean? What are the people going to say? And yet I said, because the naked eye doesn't know everything, and that's how it should be. And I'm not going to speak on everything because that's how it should be, particularly in these times. But what I do appreciate, I told Daniel that he is a healing presence to me, healing in my relationships, right? And not on some, can we all get along? Not on some cheap kind of grace either. That is not who Daniel Wolpert is. But let me tell you who Daniel is so that we can bring Daniel to the forefront of the stage and we can hear the word that Daniel has for us. Daniel Wolpert is a healer and a student of spiritual life. He is dedicated over 30 years to teaching and leading retreats in psychology, integrative medicine, and spiritual formation. A Presbyterian pastor and spiritual director, he is also an accomplished author with numerous books and articles on spiritual life, leadership, and healing. Before earning his Master of Divinity degree at San Francisco Theological Seminary, Daniel worked as a research scientist, psychologist, spiritual director, a farmer, a teacher, and construction worker. His extensive teaching experience includes positions at the Art of Spiritual Direction program at San Francisco Theological Seminary, National Ministry Conferences, UCLA, UND Medical School, Luther Seminary, and the 5 Day Academy for Spiritual Formation. Daniel has significantly contributed to the development of contemplative environments in spiritual leadership by building or restoring monasteries, theological schools, and retreat centers across North America. He is the co founder and former executive director of the Minnesota Institute of Contemplation and Healing, also known as MICA. His notable publications include Leading a Life with God, The Practice of Spiritual Leadership, Creating a Life with God, The Call of Ancient Prayer Practices, and his most recent book, Looking Inward, Living Outward, The Spiritual Practice of Social Transformation. Daniel divides his time between Seattle and Minnesota, continuing his work in spiritual direction and healing in private practice. Friends, I am so very excited, like real excited to bring to the forefront here My comrade, the Reverend Daniel Wopert. Daniel, I'm really appreciative. I'm going to back out, but as I said, I'll be, I'm going to come in raising my hands. I'm going to back out now and welcome you to the PRC main stage. God bless you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm seeing that the video quality is weird. Is that what you're seeing?
We can see you. It gets pixely at time, but you're good.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Melva and all of my friends and comrades in this community, just saying thank you for having me here is wholly inadequate to my experience. And I do want to just begin um, with uh, with a couple of minutes of quiet. This will be our prayer before I speak, and I do want to say that I don't have my pink robe on. I don't have a pink robe, but I do have my favorite T-shirt, sweatshirt, which is all my heroes have FBI files, and then this is a lot of my teachers, the Black liberationists. So I thought that that would be good for today. But let us just start with a moment of prayer together. Amen. So somebody put in the chat, speak louder, and I hope that the sound
No, you're
is
fine.
coming on
You're fine.
through.
I
Okay.
can hear you well.
All right. Okay. So I do want to begin by just saying a little something about why I'm here before we get to the text. And because people ask me, they say to me, well, do you have a church? And this is particularly true since we moved. And I said, well, yeah, I do have a church. I've got this great place that I go to online. It's 98% brilliant Black women, a few Black men, and me. And I've gotten a lot of interesting looks when I describe that. But the reason that I'm here is because this is a place where I think the most, and not that others aren't doing it too, but still the most profound, wonderful theological reflection and activity is happening. And I want to say something about theological activity in terms of the way that it gets framed, especially as somebody coming out of the dominant white world. When you go to a mainline seminary, right, and which is again the dominant white seminary, you're supposed to take class in theology, right? It doesn't have a name on the front of it. It's just theology. And of course, the implication there is that that's, the correct theology. And then we hear about these other kinds of theologies, liberationist theology, Black theology, womanist theology, and you can take electives in those, right? And the implication there, of course, is that those are kind of like the DEI theologies. But this has always really bothered me because if theology is speech about God and we're trying to actually say something real about God, we're just looking for what is the best theology. What is the best theology we can come up with? And I feel like if we're going to put these monikers in front of it, and I understand why we have to do that, it'd be great to say, well, this is white settler colonialist theology. right? Or this is white male intellectual disembodied dissociative theology. And then we could stack all those monikers up against each other and see where we come out. But I'm just inspired here every week, and so this is why I've been here. And so being invited to share is remarkable for me, and I can't say thank you enough. Before we get to our text for today, I do want to say a couple of more things about presuppositions. Because this is the other thing when you get theological training, you hear about this exegesis versus eisegesis, right? What is the real thing in the text versus what I'm putting into the text. And I also reject those hard distinctions. We are always putting everything into the text. We are always bringing our presuppositions into our readings and into our sayings and speakings and interpretations. And, at least we could say a few things about what those presuppositions are. And especially on a day like today when, we've heard these texts, we've heard these ways that they've been talked about and interpreted all the time. I think it's really important um, to say something about a couple of my presuppositions as we come to these texts. The first one is that for me, it's pretty obvious that women are central to the whole story, the whole biblical story. They are not add-ons, right? They are not sideline people. It is always a testimony to the capacity for human beings to be infinitely deluded. The people who can call themselves biblical literalists or biblical based Christians can literally ignore the fact that it is the women that announce the resurrection. It is amazing that people who call themselves biblical literalists can literally ignore the fact that it is women who presage the entire good news, right? Mary and Elizabeth. It is amazing to me that people who are biblical literalists can literally ignore the fact that it is the women midwives who conspire to keep Moses alive and therefore move the entire Exodus story forward. And it is amazing to me that that biblical literalists can literally ignore the fact that wisdom, who is the element of creation, who is the midwife of the entire universe. We hear that she is completely aware and present to the mind of God as God creates. She is a woman, right? So the women are central to all of this, and this is going to become very important as we move forward. The second presupposition that I want to lift up is that this indigenous Hebraic set of teachings, which is really what the Bible is. We are looking at this indigenous wisdom from this part of the world, is fundamentally African, right? It's fundamentally African in every way. This of course is something that Europeans don't want to admit. Even when Europeans are willing to talk about Egypt, right? Because Egypt you kind of can't ignore, right? But what they do is they say, well, Egypt is actually just a white suburb of Rome, right? Right? Egypt isn't really African, right? It's like a bunch of white people hanging out on the edge of the continent, maybe, or maybe it's like a little island that broke off. No, this of course is nonsense, right? This is complete nonsense. So if we look at the Hebraic text and we look at, for example, the Ten Commandments, right? This comes directly from a much larger group of commandments of Ma'at, 50 some odd commandments, right? So this is fundamentally an African set of teachings. Now, when we come to today, and this is, I think, just so important, it's going to come back a little later. right? One of the most ancient stories, actually, in the world is the story of Isis and Osiris. Right now, Isis, again, a woman, the woman goddess of creation, the woman goddess of all that is good and wise. Isis resurrects her brother, her husband, Osiris, so that they can have an unusual baby who is now going to be the good king over the world. Now, I mean, I hope this story sounds kind of familiar to people, right? Right? I mean, are we hearing this, right? Unusual baby, resurrection, new king over creation. Um, this is a fundamentally African story, and so again, when we are looking at this entire set of teachings that we are following, we need to look very deeply at what are the indigenous roots of all of this that we were talking about. And so, with all of that, very long-winded introduction, let's hear two texts for today. One is from Proverbs chapter 9, and the other one is from Luke. Wisdom has built her house, she has set up her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her beasts, she has mixed her wine, she has also set her table. She has sent out her maids to call from the highest places in the town. Whoever is simple, let them turn in here. To those who are without sense, she says, come, eat of my bread, drink of the wine I have mixed, leave simpleness and live, and walk in the way of insight. So the second reading is from Luke, the beginning of the 23rd chapter, verse 55, and going to verse 12 of chapter 24. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid, and they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath, they rested according to the commandment. But on the first day of the week at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking the spices which they had prepared. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, behold, 2 men stood by them in dazzling apparel. And as they were frightened, the men said to them, why do you seek the living among the dead? Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise. And they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all of this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene and Johanna and Mary, the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. So, one of the things, of course, again, you hear if you get theological training is, well, you better have something to say on Easter, right? What is the resurrection about? And I want to begin by saying what the resurrection and Easter is not about, in my understanding. And in fact, and I say this because we have heard so much this other story, which quite honestly has been incredibly harmful and damaging. This day is not about uh, some sort of psychotic warlord acting out some sort of cosmic child abuse to partially satiate his lust for killing, right? And this is not about maybe we're going to get out of here alive because this crazy leader is going to be nice to us, even as he is torturing the majority of humanity. Uh, I can't possibly understand how that could be good news to anyone. And what I think really is that that is simply the projection of empire onto theology. Right? That is the projection of the human emperor onto theology. And this is not of value. And as I said, I'm very aware of how much harm this has caused, and just am very sensitive to that, and I just pray all the time that people can get healing and get out of that sort of theology. And so today, what I want to talk about and what I've titled this is forming a new species. Forming a new species. What is going on here? Now, one of the things that we need to ask ourselves, I think, is what is the point of all of what we are doing, right? What is the point of this religion and spirituality? Why are we getting up early on Sunday morning to talk about this? What is happening? And one of my teachers, the Reverend Dr. James Noel, great Black preacher, professor, church historian, um, and sadly died way too young. But one of the things he would say in preaching class, which I always loved, he said, I don't care if a sermon has 3 points or 5 points or 7 points, but it has to have a point. It has to have a point, right? So what is the point? And what I would say is that if you look across all religious and spiritual traditions, they're very clear, really, that the point is less suffering. Right. The point is a just society. Right. The point is how can we as humans live with each other in a way that is loving and peaceful. Right. That's the point. And so if we understand that point, we have to say, well, then what is the obstacle? Right. What is the obstacle to less suffering? And the thing that is very clear, again, in all of the contemplative traditions, the thing that is very clear is that the obstacle is the human ego process. This is what the obstacle is. So the human ego process, and I could spend a long time talking about this, but I'm not going to. The human ego process is basically something that is necessary, right? Is what creates our sense of separate self, our sense of this and that. It allows us to function in the world. And the human ego process, therefore, is not necessarily a bad thing. It just is. It is part of the first iteration of humanity in a way. But it has this very severe drawback and problem, right? This very severe drawback and problem. And the problem is that once we know we are a self, we know that we can be a not self. Right? So once we know that we can am I still there? Yeah, there we
You're
go.
still here. You're still here.
Okay. So this is the basic problem of death. And what that does then, therefore, is that the human ego's solution to that is to say, I'm going to accumulate. I'm going to accumulate, right? And I'm going to continue to try to fortify myself and fortify what I have. And this is not just an individual, this now becomes collective. And this is the process of empire and the process of oppression. Right. And so what empire is continuing to do is to fortify itself and to accumulate over and over and over again. And when you accumulate, it means that some people have a lot and some people have nothing. And that's what creates the suffering. Right? That is what creates the suffering. The basic instruction of take enough manna for yourself for one day. Well, if I take manna for 20 people, that means 20 people starve. Right? If I take resources so that I have 10 times more than I need, then people starve. And I have to oppress people to do that, right? And so this is the kingdom of the world. This is the essence of the kingdom of the world. And this is the problem that we are trying to solve all throughout Scripture. Right, so if we look at the first creation, right, the story of the Garden of Eden is not a story about people being naughty or something. The story of the Garden of Eden is the story of the creation of the human ego process, right, the development of awareness. And so we get this human 1.0, and now, right, we have this problem that we've got to solve. And the solution, of course, would be a new species, right? A new iteration of the human being, right? One where the goodness and justice, that fear of death, would no longer be driving all of our action and activity, right? Like I take what I need for today because I'm in a community where I know I'm going to get what I need tomorrow, right? I'm not continually driven by this desire to get more and more and more because I'm terrified that I'm going to die, right? And so one of the things that we see, and we see this figure of wisdom, and again, remember, wisdom is the one who is the agent in creation. She is doing the creating, right? Proverbs says, I am beside God like a master handiworker, right? Making, and so again, Eve is not like some bad chick, hanging out in the garden, tempting Adam. Eve is one of these handmaidens who is actually birthing humanity, right? She is actually birthing humanity. And again, this is not some kind of a horrible bad thing, right? But now we've got, if we look through scripture, we're like, okay, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this problem? So first we say, well, let's give them some rules to follow. Maybe they'll listen. Well, the problem is the ego doesn't listen. The ego does not listen, right? So the people don't listen. And then they say, well, let's get them some judges. And who, of course, is one of the premier judges? A woman, right? Deborah. Let's get them some judges. Maybe they'll listen to the judges. No, ego doesn't listen to the judges. And then ego looks around and says, hey, look, we want a king. We want a king. And God says, we are going to mess you up. The king is going to mess you up. I'm even going to list all the ways that the king is going to mess you up. And people, and the ego is like, no, we want a king. We want to get messed up, right? The king will keep us safe. And then we get to the wisdom tradition, and this is this contemplative tradition. How do we walk in the way of insight, right? How do we walk in the way of insight? How do we engage a set of practices? And she sends out her handmaids to cry out, does anybody want to come? Free food, right? Free food, free teachings. But the problem is very few people come. Very few people come, right? And so then we get finally to the Jesus story. And the women say, you know what? We actually need to conjure a new species. We need to conjure a new species. This is what we need to do. We actually need a human being whose brain has been so rewired that we can walk right through this veil of death. And so when the women are coming to the tomb in the morning, they're not coming as some sort of little accessories. They're not coming out of habit. They're not coming because they're scared. They're not coming. They are coming. They are coming to check on their experiment. They are coming as the creators. They are coming to see, has this worked? Has this worked? Right? And they see that indeed it has. Right? Indeed it has. And the challenge then next that we come to, right? And this is what we've seen played out over and over again, right? this issue of creating a new species is actually a fascinating problem in genetics. This is one of the things, despite all of our advances in genetics, right? We really have not understood this problem very well, because if you think about it, it's a really difficult thing, right? So you got the definition of a species, right, is you only mate with your own kind. You can't mate with the other kind, right? You can't mate with the other kind. So if you have a population of creatures, and remember, we get changes through mutations, which are random, which are rare, most of which are fatal, right? Uh, how are you going to get mutations among several different people, right? Several different creatures in a population so that they can go start a new population, right? The odds of that happening are basically zero. They're so, you can calculate it. It's so infinitesimal. It's never going to happen. And so one of the solutions to what is called speciation, that's the official word for creating a new species, right, is that it happens through population genetics and separation of populations. Right, separation of populations, but it occurs over long periods of time, and it's a very slow iterative process. And so once we have this resurrection event, once the women see, oh yes, a new creation is possible, a new species is possible, right? Then what has got to happen next? Well, what's got to happen next is that you have to start stabilizing this new population. You have to start stabilizing the new population. Now, the women, because they are the handmaids of wisdom, they all get it. They all get it, right? What's the problem? The problem is us guys. That's the problem, right? And they run to the guys, and what do the guys, of course, say? They're like, you're wrong, right? That's what the guys are, just being idiots, which is often what we specialize in, honestly, right? Okay, so now if we look at the history of what happens, if we look at the history of what happens, and what is this walking in the way of insight? This walking in the way of insight is the need and the attempt to stabilize this new kind of human being. And this is where the contemplative tradition comes in. And what begins to happen, right? What is the basic instruction? I will go to Galilee. I'll meet you in Galilee. Now, what is it about Galilee? Well, they're in Jerusalem, right, which is the center of the empire. They're the center of the empire. Go to Galilee, hide out, hide out, right? Because empire does not want this new species to exist. Empire does not want this new species to exist.
Mm.
This new species is a great threat to the imperial accumulation, right? Especially because if all the people that they are extracting from leave, right? If the peasants revolt, if the proletariat take off, if the workers stop working, right? How can I keep accumulating? How can I keep stealing? How can I keep killing? I can't do that. Right. So this group, this population, and we see in the early history of the church, we see this great movement out into the African desert, right? Out into the African desert to continue to develop this new species of human being, this new species of human being, right? And one of the things about this, right, is this issue of how are we going to continue to do this and pull this down out of the future? Now, one of the things that gets talked about a lot in Pink Robe Chronicles and other communities like this, right, is Afrofuturism. Now, I want you to know that, and I hope you do know, right, that Afrofuturism is not a new thing at all. This is a very old thing, right? So Anthony of the Desert, who's one of the great African contemplatives, lived supposedly 108 years old in the 4th century. One of the things that he said was, "It is easy to know the future." It's easy to know the future. And he gave this image. He said, as if two messengers set out from a city, one on foot and one on horseback. Of course, the messenger, and they have the same message. And of course, the messenger on horseback arrives very quickly, and the messenger coming by foot is surprised when he shows up at the city, at the new city, that the message has already been delivered. Right? And he said that the person who's walking, the messenger who's walking, is us traveling through normal time. Right? And we eventually get to the future and we get the message about whatever the future happens to be. He said, but the messenger on horseback is the spiritual messenger that is traveling through the space-time continuum in another way. Right? And if we hear the spirit, if we can hear the spirit, we can hear the message of the future long before we actually walk there and get there.
Mm, mm, mm.
And so the message that these people are continually working on and conjuring, this is the message of the new species, the new way of being in the world. And this is not about going anywhere necessarily off planet, right? Or after we die. This is about what is happening now. This is about what is happening now. You know, there are a lot of people who are very distressed at the moment, saying that, oh, we're having this constitutional crisis in this country. Well, I would say that we were having a constitutional crisis the day the ink dried on a constitution that said that Black people are 3/5 of a human being. I would say that we were having a religious and constitutional crisis in this country when we passed laws which created the idea of a white race in the 17th century and had those laws read in churches, right? Churches that were addicted to this imperialist theology. That's when we were having that crisis. That's when that crisis began. We were having that crisis when we created churches where white people, slaveholders, worshipped on top, and people who were going to be transported out of Africa were being held in the basement. Right? This is the problem of empire and religion that we're dealing with. This is the crisis that we're dealing with. Right? How is it that we can seriously have people, who somehow say that giving food to children at lunch is a bad thing? How is it that we can not even begin conversations about the moral and ethical dilemmas of this world, and we cannot say that it is bad to kill children, right? Which we can't seem to do, right? This is the problem of our species. This is the problem of our species, and this is the thing that we're trying to solve. And these contemplatives are pulling down from the future, a time when this new species is the dominant species on our planet. And this is what the resurrection promises, that this is actually possible, and we'd be working on it. And so I just want to point to three basic things that these communities are doing. And this is one of the things that I see going on right here and now within this community. So the first thing, and this is one of the most basic things, and we've been hearing a lot about this from one of our village keepers. The first basic thing is that our stance has to be that we are quitting empire. We're quitting empire. Now, this is not about what job we are having or not having, what we are doing or not doing, but this is a basic internal stance, because the empire, this ego process, is so seductive. It is so powerful. It is always trying to get our attention, to move us into uh, ways of being in the world that are supporting empire. And so the communities have this basic idea that everything I am doing, right? We cannot serve both God and mammon. Everything I am doing is focusing around quitting empire. And this is an ongoing practice, right? This is not just something that we decide to do one day. We have to practice this. All of these things are practices and habits of community. The second thing, which follows on the first, is that, right, is that this way of being in the world is an alternative economic system. Empire is this economic system of accumulation. And we have to develop alternative economic systems that are economic systems of sharing. right? Economic systems of sharing. Again, we take what we have, what we need that is enough, but we share it with other people. Now, when you get together with groups of Americans to start talking about spirituality, there is no better way to empty a room than to talk about sharing your stuff. You just look down from your notes and look up, and everybody's gone. Right? This is terrifying, right? Because again, we are trained in this work of accumulation. Right, so the resurrected life, again, because we are seeing through this veil of death, we are relating to reality in a different way, right? We are dealing with a different economic system. Right now, the final thing that I want to lift up here is then the practice of discernment. Practice of discernment. I want to go back to some of these deep indigenous roots, right, and this deep indigenous African spirituality, which then spreads everywhere throughout the world. So if you look at all indigenous spiritualities throughout the world, you see one very interesting thing, which is that they have this incredible commonality of a spirituality that is rooted in directions, that is rooted in colors, that is rooted in elements, that is rooted in basic creation. Right, and if you look at the African origin of this, and then you can trace it around the world, the various five element theories in Asia, the various wheels of spirituality in the Western Hemisphere, and they're all about this being able to walk and discern in communities in a way that is balanced and healed and healthy, right, and peaceful and just, right? And how do you balance these different energies? And how do you relate to the environment? And how do you relate to each other? Right? And so the practice of discernment is the practice of looking for what is truly life-giving, right? This is this way of insight. And one of the things that is hard about discernment, because this all sounds very easy, right? The thing that is hard about this, though, is that we have to develop and cultivate the practice of spiritual indifference. This is one of the ways that we are quitting empire, right? That ego is always attached to its projects. And so it holds on to them and it says, well, this is God is doing this because I am doing this, right? Rather than asking, what is God doing and what can I let go of that then can move me into what God is up to, right? And this is the thing that wisdom is constantly drawing us into. And so, what I hear all the time in this place, and as I said, this is why I'm here. What I hear all the time in this place is that PRC is full of wisdom's handmaidens. You all are conjuring up the new species. And one of the things about these computer models about speciation is that you run the experiment over and over and over again, and after many generations, the new species begins to appear. You can see this happening in these graphs. And so, 2,000 years is a long time to wait. It is. It's horrible. I wish we were there already. But this is what has to keep happening over and over again, right? And you all, the wisdom's handmaidens, are crying out. They are inviting us in. Come to the way of insight. Sign on to this new deal. Right? Come live this resurrected life. Because the other life is dismal, right? This other life is dismal, right? Every single day, people say, "Oh, there's this one horrible thing is happening to one horrible person." You know, I'm not negating any particular horror, but the fact is that the war in Sudan has been going on now for several years. It is the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet. And you cannot find one article about this in the United States media, in the mainstream media of any kind, right? Why is that? Every day this is going on. The urgency that we need to have for this transformation, uh, I hope becomes way higher because we really desperately need to evolve. The suffering is too much, and the suffering is now planetary wide on a scale that we've never had before. And so I want you to run to that tomb with those women. Maybe now we need to start thinking about running to the clearing too. I want you to run, and I want you to see that the experiment has been successful, that the new species, the new way is possible. And I really want to thank you again for having me here. This has just been one of the great joys of my life. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Oh my. Oh my. That we are conjuring up a new species. These 3 points for living a resurrected life. Really confronting the ego. Daniel, thank you so very much. I'm looking at the chat. There are so many hearts. People are just this chat is on fire. The experiment has been successful. Thank you. Thank you, friends. We're heading over to the clearing. The clearing is I'm gonna let Daniel catch his breath, so I'm gonna take him off of screen for a sec. Um, Listen, I put in the chat, you gotta be spiritually grown to ride this ride. This is not for the babe in Christ. This is not for the unnuanced thinker. I just keep hearing, and a new earth, new heaven. My goodness, this and while this grow your ears up. hmm Grow your ears up. And hear me, because some will inevitably say that I am, coming against the traditions of the, historically, black church denominations and the performative style of preaching. And I am not, because it has its place. And if you let it, if you heard Daniel clearly enough, if you let it, because what it really should be doing is conjuring. The issue is that there's no real power behind some of these attempts to conjure. And so if you came here expecting a squall of nothingness, if you felt like, oh, I can't take that today, I need to hear he got it. If you need, amen, we God bless you, and we send you forth. But if you are one, I see my comrade, my sister, the Reverend Naomi Washington Leapart was on. If you are, I saw Dr. Daniel Black was on, Dr. Monica Coleman. If you are weary and you need more, if you were looking for a table where you could have conversation, where you could like really think about this resurrection, not in this sort of ethereal but in a very tangible way, listen, this is the message. And Daniel Wolpert, my goodness, you, as I started out saying, you are a gift. We're headed over to the clearing. The clearing is our subscription community. It is a private Zoom where we talk back to the text with each other, where we engage. It is a nominal, a modest, it's a $30 a month subscription. We have a private Facebook group. When you are unable to join us live, you get the recording of the clearing and the PRC. If you have a challenge, if for some reason you just cannot do it right now, but you need to be in this talk back today because you heard something and you're like, I need to be there. I don't have it. Please inbox me. Go ahead and inbox me if you're on Facebook now. If you are watching on YouTube, you can email me at drmelvasampson@gmail.com. drmelvasampson@gmail.com. And I will bless you just with a courtesy entrance to come on in, because this was so powerful, and it's you can't talk about it with everybody. So Daniel, go grab your water, go take a physical refreshment, whatever needs to be done, and we are headed over to the